Today's video, we're going to be checking out the brand new release, ThreeZero Halloween 6 The Curse of Michael Myers, the 1/6 scale collectible figure of Michael Myers. Of course, this depiction of Michael Myers is from Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, which was released in 1995. Michael Myers was portrayed by George P. Wilbur, which, funny enough, was actually not Wilbur's first outing as Michael Myers. He was also wearing the Michael Myers mask back in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, which was from 1988. Grabbing the tape measure out, Michael Myers stands at about a little over 12 inches tall. Now, if you count technically his hair, Michael Myers stands at more closer to 13 inches tall. That's actually only because of his hair. It was actually rather interesting that ThreeZero would approach a Halloween 6 Michael Myers, as I'm sure many collectors and fans of the Halloween franchise would have automatically thought their first outing would have been of Halloween 1's Michael Myers. And I'm not really sure the reasoning behind that. Honestly speaking, though, I'm kind of happy that they did a Halloween 6 Michael Myers, as it's been one of my favorite Halloweens of all time. Now, before you jump on me and say Halloween 6 is one of your personal favorites, there's certain darkness to Halloween 6 and the veracity of Michael Myers in that movie that really, of all the Halloween movies, it's the one I seem to have more fun going back to and watching. Of course, I always watch the classics, but there's something to be said about Halloween 6, Michael Myers specifically, that I find outright terrifying. I don't know if it's just the pastiness of his face or just like the sheer size of him, but there's something scary I find always about the Halloween 6 Michael Myers mask, and it's the one I go to as if I want to think the scariest Michael Myers, I would automatically think the Michael Myers mask from 6 before I would probably think of the other Halloween movies. With a look at the figure's head, a great looking head sculpt. Something about the Halloween 6 Michael Myers mask that I found just outright terrifying. There was a certain level of pastiness, I think, that was conveyed in Michael Myers' mask. Also very notable, he had very large ears, and that, along with the more discolored lips, really, for me, again, was a very scary looking Michael Myers. And of all the Myers, not that I would really want to be alone with a Michael Myers anywhere, but I think the one that would terrify me the most would definitely be Part 6's. As it goes for masks and face sculpts, ThreeZero did a really great job on the mask sculpt here. I especially like, once again, how you've got these sunken in socket areas of the eyes. So the eyes are there, but they're in a much deeper, deeper depth to that of the rest of the mask. The coloring is kind of a cross between, I want to dare say, like a beige and almost like a light gray. It actually reads more white on camera than it seems to in person. In person, it actually kind of looks a little bit more cream colored. We just move the collar out of the way here. All the little wrinkles there on the lower portion of his mask are slightly discolored, again, using kind of more darker grays in there. In some ways, actually, looking at this particular mask and seeing how very obvious the eyes are, this face almost kind of reads a little bit like H2O's Michael Myers as well. There's the back of the hair, which has a good rooted amount of hair. Quite actually good, though. I did notice, like, getting out of packaging, some of the hair, as you can see, does come out. And I don't necessarily say it's quality, like QC issues. I think it's just excess hair that just hasn't been completely adhered to the back of the head. So, while you're doing this, you might just kind of get the odd hairs. Any of the hairs that really weren't all glued down, you might just get the odd ones kind of coming out in the process. When I first looked at Michael's eyes, it did seem like his eyes were not completely the same level. Like this eye here looked like it was higher up. I think the more I look at it, though, I don't think that the eyes are what's throwing it off. I think it's actually the socket placement of the mask. I don't know if maybe the mask is slightly tilted or so, but it does seem like the eyes are actually leveled to one another. Could maybe just be the cutout of the eye socket of the mask. Maybe that's throwing it off. Really great looking detailing there. I would try my best to probably not have it so that you could see his eyes as much. I kind of like the more darker areas. Once I've got it though in a display somewhere, I don't think I'll see the eyes as much. Of course, I've got the lights, the studio lights here shining over it, so it's a little easier to make out the eyes than I would say in hand. In hand, it doesn't look as obvious as probably what it's looking at right now. I've also got this right close to the camera too, so you can probably see that the eyes are a little bit more obvious than I think what actually is the case in person here. His outfit consists of a gray worker's boiler suit, which is actually a nice departure too from some of the other Myers movie costumes. Usually they've been a little bit more closer to like blue-based green or some darker blues, or in some cases blacks as well. That's one of the things that makes somewhat Part 6 not only the backstory making the movie more distinctly different, but of course Michael Myers' design as well. I do think that they did a really good job actually on the boiler suit, incorporating some pocket areas here on the sides. You got some pockets on the sides of his sleeve. Got a zipper on the back pocket here, and a couple of pockets on the back. Especially like as well that they've given just really dirtied extra paint to there as well. Not only do you have just areas of brown added to the shoulders and the sleeves here, but it looks like you've got a fair bit of dried blood. Areas in the kind of recessed area of the shoulder, of the elbow here. Got some blood there around the waist. Not to mention you've got this kind of dried mud that looks like it's caked on the bottom cuff of the pants. One thing I do think that they did a great job on is the sculpt of the boots. Not only did they put the little tab on the back of the boots, but they've given it a full tread. Little ThreeZero logo on the underside there. Nice full tread. They've given that nice kind of muddy cake paint on the tip there, on the front of the boot. But they've also given it real laces, which I think is a nice touch as well. It would almost lend itself to think that I could probably unlace the boot and take it off. I obviously wouldn't, but a good level of care to detail there. I might even say, actually, it's one of the most accurate looking 6 scale boots I've seen on a figure. Just really done nicely. The boiler does have a zipper. You could theoretically unzip it if you wish. I don't know why you would necessarily want to, but you could unzip it. And underneath that, Michael Myers is wearing what looks to be a brown shirt. It doesn't feel like necessarily he's got padding. I thought initially it might be padding, but I feel like it's actually just sculpted torso. Like all this, it doesn't feel like there's any soft pillow, like a soft like pillow cushion or anything like added to it. So I'm feeling as if it actually might be just all his torso that's making for his size. Something I mentioned already at the beginning of this review was that Michael Myers was portrayed by George P. Wilbur, a professional stuntman, and it wasn't actually the first time he had done Michael Myers. The first outing when he wore the mask was in the Return of Michael Myers Halloween 4. One of the notable things, though, about George P. Wilbur's portrayal of Michael Myers was he was a very broad stuntman, and as a result, Michael Myers in both roles, in both movies, was a very big character, substantially big, like physically imposing. And initially, when I looked at this figure and taking him out of packaging, I did feel like proportionately he should have been a little bit broader, specifically in the torso. Maybe not necessarily in the arms and the legs, because a lot of that can be additional volume from his costume. But I specifically felt like his torso should have been a little bit bigger. Now that I've kind of been looking at this guy for a bit and, kind of been comparing him to screenshots, I would say that he is of adequate and almost accurate sizing. Maybe where I initially thought that he could have been a little bit broader. It might have actually been just the certain scenes that I was looking at, because there's a lot of scenes where you see very low camera shots of Michael, so it gives him a bigger sense of imposing size. When you look at like kind of distant shots of him walking, scale-wise, he's fairly accurate to the 6 scale figure here. We'll look at his accessories in a second, but I just want to show you the sculpting and paint on his hands. Now, these are one of two pairs of hands that he does include with. Technically, these were the relaxed palms that came with him default out of packaging. It just so happens I swapped him out with the more closed fists for holding things such as the knives and the axe. But I just want to show you the care of detail that they put into Michael Myers' hands here. Heavily scarred, I might add. And you can see the sculpting of the fingernails and thumb. Got a lot of paint to it. The peg would normally be a problem for me, the fact that it's more flesh tone, but as you can clearly see, the boiler sleeve runs far enough down the hand, or at least the wrist of the hand, where you're not going to necessarily see this. By the way, if you're wondering as well, no, there is no mark of the thorn on Myers' wrist or forearm area. In fact, rolling up the sleeve, you can see it's just a flesh tone. I'm not terribly devastated. In fact, the thorn was the one thing I least liked about Halloween 6. It was really something so unnecessary. But for those just wondering whether the thorn is present on the figure, it is not. Running through the accessories that come included with him. Now, sadly, he doesn't come with a display stand, but really, ThreeZero also didn't give us a display stand either for the pinhead. So I'm not really devastated too much by. He stands fine. If I ever wanted to display him with a stand, I could always just get a default 6-scale black oval-shaped stand as a way to display him. But, you know, he stands perfectly fine. I'm not really all that upset that he didn't come with one. He does come with, however, an axe. I do feel like the axe could have been a little longer, though. The scene in which he's holding it, let me just see if I can demonstrate here. Slide into his hand. The way he's holding it in the scene, he's actually holding it as if he's going to be swinging it. Now, looking at the screenshots and then looking at the footage again, I feel like the axe could have been maybe just a slight bit longer. It almost comes across a little too short when you've actually got him holding it with both hands. I'm not likely going to be displaying him with it anyways, but I feel like maybe the axe could have afforded just to be a little bit longer. Take that, put that on the backdrop. The other things that he does come included with are two variations of kitchen knives. One, a more pristine one, which I have to admit and pleasantly tell you guys, it's metal. It's actually a metal knife. In fact, here's the alternate knife too that comes with, well, it's a little bit more dirtied. It's got a little bit more blood on it, but you can hear it's actually metal knives, which is a really nice touch. I'd be okay if it was plastic. I wouldn't certainly expect anything more than that, but I'm pleasantly surprised to see that it's metal. So I really like that. Displaying him, I mean, obviously I've got the gripping hands in his sockets currently, and the metal knives have zero problem fitting into his hand. A nice secure fit as well. And, you know, again, you can have Michael Myers holding it any which way you want. Some people prefer to have the knives facing the opposite direction. You know, again, if he's going to be, you know, cutting and stabbing somebody. So there's a couple of different options that you can go with there. But I'm, you know, very, very happy that they would have gone the route metal. I mean, that far exceeds any expectations I would have had for things like knives. I mean, you know, when you start looking at like Hot Toys and 6-scale figures, a lot of times like all their accessories are plastic. So, you know, metal for me goes a long way. Looking at his posability, his head is on a ball joint, so you get a full rotation going on there. It looks like it's actually only hinged in where the neck attaches itself to the mask. There's no secondary ball joint anywhere there. Of course, moving it, you'll find yourself probably squishing his hair. You might want to just kind of fix that up after the fact. His arms hinge outward, a nice ratcheted joint moving those arms outward. Forward and back, it gets a little tight, just a little tight around the boiler suit, when you move the arms too much forward. But they do move out, I would say, fairly easily. Doesn't appear to have a bicep swivel, but he does have a swivel point in his forearm. I find like my particular figure is a little loose here, just a little bit loose. So, for example, having him holding the knife, I find like the forearm is a little already on the loose side. The hands rotate, as well as what we've already looked at. They do hinge back and forth here. His waist swivels back and forth. Looks like there's also a hinge crunch right there in his abdomen. His legs split outward, forward and back. He has what looks to be a double hinge in the knee. And despite the fact that the sculpt of his boots ride as far up as they do, he still manages to have a sufficient ankle pivot, both left and right, up and down, as well as you can rotate the feet all the way around. I have to admit, I'm a little surprised once again that ThreeZero approached Halloween 6 as their first outing for a Michael Myers. It might have something to do with just the licensing of what was available and how some movies have different companies backing it, that there's licensing struggles here and there. Maybe specifically Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, was a movie that they were able to get access for the licensing and the rights and stuff like that. I'm personally happy because Halloween 6 is still one of my personal favorites. It's not the original. It's not Halloween 2, and some fans also really like Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Still, though, there's something about Halloween 6's Michael Myers that still gives me chills. Looking at him on screen, the size, the presence that he has, as well as a very distinct looking mask, still holds up to me nowadays as my favorite Michael Myers mask. It just has a real creepiness to it. Again, I can't put my finger on why specifically I like the mask so much, but it's definitely one of my all-time favorite designs for Michael Myers. Speaking from a figure standpoint, I think ThreeZero really did a good job on this. They didn't seem like they cut corners. I mean, right down to the fact that we got ourselves real metal knives, I think shows something for the fact that ThreeZero would have given the amount of care that they ended up giving to this particular figure. The head sculpt's good. The boiler suit has some necessary paint apps that I really do appreciate. Sure, he doesn't come with a display stand. Does a figure like this really necessarily have to come with a display stand when you can get so very easily a standard stand for him to be on top of? One thing that I do have to mention, though, about the ThreeZero releases is the price point. If you've ever compared the pricing of ThreeZero releases versus, say, the likes of other 6-scale companies, ThreeZero produces a very affordable means to pick yourself up your favorite figures. I'm still surprised the price that Pinhead was. Michael Myers here is about $160. I think he's about $160 to $170 depending on where you pick him up. So he's affordable. He has all the necessary accessories that one would want with a Michael Myers. And overall, I'm really happy with how this figure turned out. The only thing I can hope for is that ThreeZero will A, continue to run with horror-related 6-scale figures, maybe the ones that maybe the other companies haven't touched yet. A Candyman, for example. Maybe we'll get some killers from the 90s. But the one thing I really hope is that this isn't the first, or I should say this isn't the last Michael Myers that we're going to be getting. If this is the kind of stuff that we're going to be getting from ThreeZero when it comes to the Michael Myers figures, I am so hoping that they're going to be able to give us Michael Myers from other Halloween movies as well. Today, though, we were having a look at the ThreeZero Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. This was the 1/6 scale collectible figure of Michael Myers. If you guys like this video, certainly hit it with a like down below. And hey now, if you guys want to check out more ThreeZero reviews, I've got a playlist on this channel as well that you can go back and watch those other videos at your viewing pleasure. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.